If marriage was a giant slalom, I mean, I'm a bronze medal winner. You're a gold medal winner, right?
These 8 Golden Age stars appeared only once on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Carson's desk was the most coveted seat in entertainment for 3 decades, hosting thousands of guests across more than 4,500 episodes. But some of Hollywood's biggest legends sat down with Johnny just one single time. Stick around till the end to find out who these guests are. Number 1, Elizabeth Taylor.
I cannot think offhand of another international personality who has sparked the intense public fascination as my first guest, and it's a great pleasure to have her here. Would you welcome Miss Elizabeth Taylor?
Elizabeth Taylor only appeared on Carson's Tonight Show once in its entire 30-year run, and that might be the most stunning example on this list. A woman who defined Hollywood glamour for generations, a 4-time Oscar nominee who won for Butterfield 8 and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, sat in that guest chair exactly one time. February 21st, 1992. That's when it finally happened, just days before her 60th birthday and mere months before Carson retired. Taylor had been one of the world's most famous women since the 1950s. Her marriages were tabloid gold, and her starring role in Cleopatra made headlines around the globe. Yet she never sat down with Johnny until the very end.
Well, let's see now, we've been on the air 29 years and 6 months. We got about 3.5 months to go, and we finally got you here.
Well,
The wit she brought to that February interview made her more than just a beautiful face. Her 8 marriages became material for jokes, delivered with the kind of self-awareness that only comes from truly living life. The moment that stuck with Carson came when Taylor revealed she'd seen advance copies of her own obituaries, and they were the best reviews she'd ever gotten.
Let's talk about marriage a little bit. I've made jokes about nobody likes to have a marriage that does not work, right? Nobody likes that. And I've often made jokes about mine because I think sometimes by doing that...
And mine, too.
Yes, I have. If marriage was a giant slalom, I mean, I'm a bronze medal winner. You're a gold medal winner, right?
Vintage Elizabeth Taylor, turning something morbid into something humorous while acknowledging her complicated legacy with grace. Her later reflection on life carried remarkable honesty when she put it this way: "Everything was handed to me, looks and fame and wealth and honors and love, but I've paid for that luck with disasters." That single Tonight Show appearance captured Taylor at a reflective moment, looking back on an extraordinary life, while Carson retired just a few weeks later. Number 2, Jackie Gleason.
My first guest tonight does not need a very effusive introduction, but I'd like to give him one anyway because I am an unabashed fan of Jackie Gleason ever since I saw him in the early days of television back in the early 50s when he was doing the Cavalcade of Stars out of New York.
The great one himself, Ralph Cramden from The Honeymooners, the star of one of television's most beloved sitcoms, and an actor who appeared in classics like The Hustler and Smokey and the Bandit, only showed up on Carson's show once, October 18th, 1985, and Gleason was 69 years old at the time, less than 2 years before he passed. Johnny Carson had hosted the biggest platform in entertainment for over 2 decades, and Jackie Gleason had been one of America's most recognizable comedians for just as long. The fact they never connected on The Tonight Show until that autumn evening in 1985 seems almost impossible. Carson introduced him simply as Jackie Gleason, and the audience erupted because they knew they were witnessing something rare. That trademark gruff charm came through. The working-class New York persona that had made him a household name, and the whole thing felt like a meeting that should have happened years earlier.
And he is one of the true comic geniuses of our times. Would you welcome Mr. Jackie Gleason?
The most telling detail about this appearance was Gleason's joke that he'd been waiting to see if Carson's show would last before agreeing to appear. 23 years, The Tonight Show had been on under Carson's hosting by 1985, so if Gleason was truly waiting for proof of longevity, he'd certainly gotten it. Some stars simply didn't need the talk show circuit, and Gleason was a television giant in his own right. Maybe he felt no pressing need to sit in the guest chair until he was ready. And whatever his reasons, that October 1985 appearance remains his only time trading stories with Johnny Carson. Number 3, Audrey Hepburn.
She was a superstar, I think, before that word was used out here in Hollywood, and she's really kind of been away from the screen for about 8 years. But if you've seen any of her pictures, she's an incredible actress. And would you believe I'm a little nervous?
Yes?
Really? Would you welcome, please, Miss Audrey Hepburn.
What makes this appearance legendary has nothing to do with what the guest did and everything to do with what she did to the host. March 30th, 1976, Audrey Hepburn appeared on The Tonight Show exactly once when she was 46 years old, promoting her film Robin and Marian while her movie career was essentially winding down. Only 3 more films would come after 1976, making this already a rare television appearance for someone of Hepburn's stature. The star of Roman Holiday, for which she won an Oscar, and Breakfast at Tiffany's was known more for her absence from the spotlight than her presence in it. Getting her on The Tonight Show at all was remarkable, but what happened during that interview became the stuff of talk show legend.
Reminds me of my days in Nebraska when I used to go out in the wheat fields.
But you know...
Not quite as romantic as that, unfortunately, but nevertheless, we went into the wheat fields.
That part of the country looks like Nebraska, where you saw the wheat fields.
Yeah?
The miles and miles of wheat.
It's comfy out there. Real comfy. Cornfields are bad. Wheat fields are nice.
Johnny Carson later confessed something extraordinary during a 1987 interview with Betty White. Audrey Hepburn was the one guest who completely unnerved him. And when you consider what that means, the statement becomes even more stunning. This was the man who'd interviewed everyone from Bob Hope to Muhammad Ali, the master of the late-night conversation who could make anyone feel comfortable. And he's admitting that Audrey Hepburn left him at a loss for words. She sat quietly and proper, he recalled, with that legendary poise and grace she was known for. No edge for Carson to play off. No Hollywood gossip to mine, just Audrey Hepburn being elegant and composed, and somehow that completely threw him off his game. The exchange is remembered more for Carson's reaction than for anything Hepburn said, standing as a unique Tonight Show moment when the guest's mere presence shifted the entire dynamic. Number 4, Merritt Heaton.
My first guest tonight holds the record. As far as we know, nobody's challenged it yet, of being the oldest active farmer in the state of Illinois. I would think it would be the oldest active farmer almost anywhere. From the town of Toulon, would you welcome, please, Merritt Heaton.
Not every memorable Tonight Show guest came from Hollywood, and sometimes the most unforgettable appearances came from everyday people with extraordinary stories. February 3rd, 1988, Carson introduced a 97-year-old farmer from Toulon, Illinois, as the state's oldest active farmer. And Merritt Heaton walked onto that stage to create pure television magic. Born in 1890, Heaton had lived through almost a century of American history. 64 years of marriage before his wife passed, farming the same Illinois land through world wars and the Depression and every change America went through in the 20th century. And now, here he was under studio lights about to charm millions.
You look remarkable. Are you really 97?
That's what they tell me. That's what I go by.
Well, you look great. Must be the climate in Illinois.
Well,
Carson opened by joking that a man who'd lived through 10 or 12 world wars should do just fine on television, even though Heaton admitted he'd been scared to come on. Once the conversation started, that folksy humor had the audience roaring, and what followed was one of the most heartwarming segments in the show's history.
Now, somebody told me when we first invited you to the show, you didn't want to come on.
no,
Really?
no.
Why not?
Well, I'm scared to...
Well, you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be scared. You've been through 10 or 12 world wars. I mean,
Heaton explained that he'd handed over most of the farm duties to his 78-year-old son, which meant his son was 78 and still working the farm daily. When Carson asked what the greatest change in farming had been, Heaton said electricity. And Carson quipped that maybe it was the wheel, sending the audience into fits of laughter.
Oh, I let my son do the bossing. I do what he says.
really?
Yeah.
How old is your son?
Oh, he's 78.
What's been the biggest change since you were a young man on the farm?
Oh, well, I'd say electricity.
Oh.
The most touching moment came when they discussed Heaton's personal life. This 97-year-old widower who'd been married for 64 years joked about having two lady friends, one in California and one in Illinois. And he'd found romance again in his late 90s with a joy that was absolutely infectious.
We're married, I understand, for many years?
Yes, sir. 64 years.
64 years. Now, somebody said, now, I don't want to get personal, so somebody said you have a lady friend that you occasionally visit here in California.
Oh, gosh, I visit her more than occasionally.
Merritt Heaton passed on April 26, 1989 at age 98, and his single Tonight Show appearance is still circulated as one of the most heartwarming moments in the show's history. Number 5, Mildred Holt. August 26, 1987. Mildred Holt appeared on The Tonight Show at the age of 105, which makes Merritt Heaton's appearance at 97 seem almost young by comparison. Born July 17, 1882, this Kansas schoolteacher and widow had lived through 3 centuries by the time she sat down with Johnny Carson, witnessing the entire evolution of modern America along the way.
We read about my first guest tonight in a local Kansas newspaper, and she sounded like a more than remarkable woman. She's 105 years old. We thought you might like to meet her. Would you welcome, please, Mildred Holt.
The Kansas legislature honored her in 1988 as a wonderful lady who all Kansans can be proud of, and anyone who saw her Tonight Show appearance understood exactly why. Carson introduced her as 105 years young, and what followed was pure entertainment, as Holt sipped a mixed beverage from a coffee mug on national television while trading playful barbs with Carson like she'd been doing talk shows her whole life.
They say a certain amount is good.
Gives you a little pep.
You betcha. You don't drive a car, do you?
No, I had to quit 2 years ago, and that broke my...
The quote that defined her appearance came when she addressed her on-air refreshment with perfect timing. If my minister saw it, he'd say, "Oh my goodness, but I say anybody that's 105 can do what she wants to do." And the audience erupted because here was a woman who'd earned the right to make her own rules and wasn't shy about it.
We're talking with, may I call you Mildred?
Yeah,
Mildred
sure,
Holt
I
from
like that.
Ellsworth, Kansas, 105 years old. And we asked Mildred if she would like a little drink or a little water or something, and you said you'd like a highball. Now, that's Midwestern expression,
That's
for
right.
sure.
She later told reporters, "I'm too mean to pass," with that same feisty humor that made her Tonight Show appearance memorable. When Mildred Holt passed on June 23, 1991, at age 108, that single appearance with Johnny Carson had already captured her spirit perfectly. Number 6, Uri Geller, August 1st, 1973, and what happened that night became one of the most famous Tonight Show appearances of all time, happening only once because once was more than enough. Uri Geller, the Israeli-born performer known for his spoon-bending stunts, walked into what became a legendary television moment that would define his career in ways nobody expected. Geller claimed supernatural powers in the early 1970s, talking about telekinesis and ESP and the ability to bend metal with his mind.
He says that he claims to have been born, as I understand it, with the power of having psychokinetic ability, which is the movement of objects by sometimes not touching them, by the mind. He's been on shows where objects have bent, things have broken just by touching them. Would you welcome, please, Uri Geller.
Celebrity status in Europe came first, and many people genuinely believed he had real abilities, which made his appearance on The Tonight Show a perfect opportunity to introduce him to American audiences. Johnny Carson was a former magician, though, and he was openly skeptical about the whole thing.
He is really suspicious, you know. I'm having a hard time with you.
I don't mean to be, Uri. I really
No,
don't.
just keep looking.
Behind the scenes, Carson had magician James Randi help set up the interview by swapping out Geller's props to prevent any sleight of hand, creating controlled conditions that would expose any tricks being used.
We have some aluminum canisters. These are the type of aluminum canisters I guess a roll of film would come in. All of these objects have been supplied by us. You did not bring anything here at all.
The result was television history. Geller repeatedly tried and failed to bend spoons or keys while the audience watched in uncomfortable silence. And Carson famously quipped, "Is it broken?" when Geller's supposedly bent spoon looked barely affected. 22 minutes of increasing discomfort as Geller struggled to perform his usual feats under conditions he couldn't control.
That's it. Hey, let me rest a minute, all right?
All right.
Geller later admitted he'd felt humiliated, telling reporters he was about to pack up and go back to Tel Aviv after the interview because Carson's setup had sabotaged his abilities. Here's the fascinating twist, though, because that failed appearance actually made Geller's career in America instead of ending it.
I don't want you to feel bad about this tonight. The monologue doesn't work every night either.
Don't feel bad about it. It
Maybe
happens to me not once, but it happens quite a lot when I cannot perform and do things.
The publicity was enormous, and everyone was talking about Uri Geller. Some believers thought his inability to perform under Carson's conditions only proved he wasn't tricking anyone, while others were convinced it exposed him as a fraud. But either way, the controversy made him famous. Other talk shows booked him, he became known worldwide, and by the mid-1980s, he was reportedly a millionaire several times over from lectures and consulting. Number 7. Dennis Hopper. August 15th, 1991, Dennis Hopper made his only appearance on Carson's Tonight Show, and by that point, the rebel icon of New Hollywood who co-directed and starred in Easy Rider had lived several lifetimes worth of experiences. Part of Rebel Without a Cause in the 1950s, directing Easy Rider in 1969 to earn the Cannes Film Festival's top prize, and an Oscar nomination for Best Original Screenplay, starring in Apocalypse Now and Blue Velvet, struggling with addiction and rebuilding his career from scratch.
Dennis Hopper is here tonight. He's one hell of a good actor. A lot of people thought that Dennis would kind of just burn out and fade away. In truth, he's one of the busiest actors in town, and he seems to go from one critically acclaimed role to another. Would you welcome, please, Dennis Hopper?
The Dennis Hopper who appeared with Johnny Carson in August 1991 was a survivor. Someone who'd made it through the chaos of the 60s and 70s and come out the other side promoting new projects with a revitalized and professional energy. That trademark intensity channeled into lighter conversation about his career, his art, and his life with the kind of perspective that only comes from experience.
Well, I was just out doing some jokes or stuff like that.
Oh boy, no, it was great. It was a great speech.
Well, we got to get together more often.
What stands out is the timing of it all. Carson had less than a year left as host by 1991, and Hopper had been a major figure in American cinema for decades. Yet they'd never connected on The Tonight Show until that summer evening. Some stars simply moved in different circles, and the counterculture icon and the mainstream talk show host represented different Americas that rarely intersected. When they finally met, it was late in both their careers, a conversation between survivors who'd each defined their eras in different ways. Dennis Hopper passed in 2010 at age 73, leaving behind a legacy as one of American cinema's most influential rebels. Number 8, William Shatner.
This guest tonight you all know from his, probably best known for his exploits in outer space, but he's got a new series on the air which he plays a policeman called T.J. Hooker. Would you welcome, please, William Shatner.
October 27th, 1982, William Shatner appeared on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson for the first and only time, which might surprise you considering Captain Kirk was already a cultural icon by that point. Star Trek. The original series had ended in 1969 but found massive success in syndication. The first 4 Star Trek films had been released or were in production, yet Shatner had never sat down with Johnny Carson until that October night.
You do amazing stuff. When you do this, when you do those scenes, are you aware of all the other stuff? It's difficult for actors sometimes to react to a scene that is not really there.
What they usually do is they have a storyboard,
Yeah.
and the director is sufficiently familiar with what it's going to potentially look like.
51 years old at the time, Shatner shared the episode with comedian Rich Holl and talked about his career while often joking about Star Trek and demonstrating his trademark dramatic readings of popular songs, a hobby that had become part of his public persona. The conversation flowed easily enough, but what makes this single appearance interesting is everything that came after it.
I was speeding. I had a mission. I was going where no man had gone before. was going home.
Well, what kind of a mission is that?
The highway patrolman stopped you, and you got off by telling him
I said,
that you were going
"Officer,"
home to get a mouth.
And he said, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Go.
T.J. Hooker would dominate the early 1980s for Shatner, and later he'd win Emmys for playing Denny Crane in Boston Legal from 2004 to 2008, with a career spanning 7 decades that showed no signs of slowing down. The real kicker came in 2021 when Shatner flew into space aboard a Blue Origin rocket at age 90, becoming the oldest person ever to go to space in a historic flight that occurred nearly 40 years after his Tonight Show appearance with Carson. Back in 1982, though, he and Carson only connected once, a single conversation that represented the only time these two television legends shared a stage in that capacity. And somehow that one meeting was enough. 8 legendary guests and 8 single appearances tell us something fascinating about The Tonight Show and about fame itself. What they all share is that single moment in time when they sat across from Johnny Carson under those studio lights. Johnny Carson passed in 2005, but these moments live on, preserved forever. Thank you for watching and subscribe for more videos like these.